private. Most people would be executed outside in front of a huge grandstand of spectators. But here you were accorded the honour of a bit of privacy. So it was customary with your last words to thank the king for his generosity and kindness. That sort of thing. Pretty good when you apply it to Henry VIII, because this is where his wives got the chop. He gets a bad press actually. He had 6 wives, only executed 2. So when you think about it, 2/3 were not executed. So why do people always focus on the negative? But they were pretty spectacular, and they were here. Anne Boleyn, and later Catherine Howard, who was also actually related to her. So Anne Boleyn was quite notable. You know, the thing was, it was all a bit of a stitch-up. She wasn't guilty at all. But she was set up because she didn't bear Henry the son that he demanded. And so he accuses her of infidelities, of adultery, involving her brother as well, members of her court. So she was brought here. Before the execution, she was kept at the palace, which was there, between the White Tower and the wall. She was brought here, and for the execution, they brought in a French swordsman. So instead of an axe, she was decapitated with a 2-handed sword. And he was a real professional. Because you can imagine...
He wasn't drunk?
He wasn't drunk. He was very smooth. Because you can imagine how unsettling it is. She was brought up onto the scaffold, and he had hidden the sword behind some wood. So she never saw it. And she was blindfolded, and she was waiting to be told to put her head down. But while she was blindfolded, he picked up the sword. And she was kneeling there, and he calls out, "Where's my sword?" So this causes her to think what's going on, and she looks up. When she does so, she lifts her chin, and he takes her head off with one blow. So that was really professional. Yeah, so she was spared the anger. So, you know, don't say these things are not humane. The other wife, Catherine Howard, now she was just like an 18-year-old, and Henry was in his 50s. By then he had a gammy wound. His leg had been injured in a tournament, and it was never healed, and it was rather smelly, and he was well past it. She thought she could enjoy all the benefits of being the queen, yet still keep up with her boyfriends from before. And it transpired that that really wasn't allowed. And she was definitely guilty, and when she was proven guilty, she was brought over here, together with her lady-in-waiting, Lady Rochford, who had colluded in it all. So, but she was determined to die gracefully. And the whole night before, she was practicing putting her head on the block. So she had the block brought to her residence, and she spent the whole evening practicing keeping herself calm to put her head down appropriately. Because again, you wanted to cooperate, because what you wanted was to be killed quickly. And that wasn't always something you could be sure of, because sometimes the executioner got it wrong and he could hit your shoulder, not get your head off in a straight blow, you know. So you wanted it to be quick, and that's what she wanted to die like a queen. So this is where it all happened.
Was Mary Queen of Scots executed yet?
No, she was executed at Fotheringay Castle in the Midlands of England, and that castle has been demolished now. So it's up near Peterborough.
That was a botched execution.
That wasn't... No, I don't know about that one. I know that in her case was remarkable because she was known for her beautiful hair.
Right.
And when her head came off, her wig came off as well, and everybody discovered that she had white hair and it was all cropped short, and all this beautiful hair was actually a wig. So that was the thing that everybody noted, apart from the blood, I suppose everybody did. But Lady Jane Grey was executed here, so you probably know all about her. She was, again, only an 18-year-old, and she was put on the throne by her powerful family, and she only reigned for about 10 days before everybody supported Mary Tudor, and she was brought here and executed. Her husband was executed on Tower Hill publicly, but she was accorded a private execution here. In fact, there's a special exhibition on at the National. Delacroix, who painted the famous picture of Lady Jane Grey being executed, and the thing was that she was blindfolded and she was kneeling and she couldn't find the block, So she was saying, where is the block? And nobody had the heart to help her until somebody came out of the crowd and helped her put her head down on the block itself. And so if you see that painting, she seems to be looking to see where the block is. So all quite tragic stuff. The memorial is over there. They were buried somewhat unceremoniously under the floor of that church, St. Peter ad Vicula, which in the early days, in the first days of the castle, was actually outside the walls. If you can imagine that, things have changed. Okay, but what I want to do is let you loose. There's loads of things to see. You might want to get along to the tower there, which is properly called the Garden Tower, but everybody calls it the Bloody Tower, because that's where the two young princes are believed to have died. Wars of the Roses, 15th century. The two princes, well, one was a prince, one was the king actually. The young sons of the great Yorkist king, Edward IV. He was the one who polished off Henry in the Wakefield Tower. So he dies young, and his eldest son was about 13, the other one about 9. And they were too young to rule. So they were brought here by their uncle, who was their guardian, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. And for a while, people in London saw them on the battlements, and then nobody saw them again. And the rumours got out that as they slept in their beds in this tower here, the Garden Tower, two of their uncle's henchmen came along and smothered them with their pillows. That's the story, but never proven. Their bodies weren't discovered until the 17th century, 200 years later, when they demolished a staircase and found the skeletons of two young boys. And
that was Richard III?
Well, yeah, the uncle became king, strange enough. Richard III, so you probably know your Shakespeare story about him. But the two princes are now buried, or their bones are now in Westminster Abbey in Innocents' Corner. But they were missing for 200 years under the staircase at the White Tower. So, you probably know that story. It's a well-known one, paintings of it. Well, that's where it's reckoned to have happened. It's also in the Garden Tower that Sir Walter Raleigh was kept. He's the guy who went to America and brought back the potato, for which we're immensely grateful. Tobacco, maybe not so. But he spent 10 years at the tower, and some of the rooms are done up as it was in his time. You'll also see the portcullis, 3.5 tons. There are 4 working portcullises in the country. And I think there are 2 in the Tower of London which still work, if they wanted to. Yeah, and I think this is one of them. So you might want to have a peep in there. You'll probably want to see the torture instruments. That's down the slope on the left-hand side, the entrance to the Wakefield Tower. That's quite quick, it won't take you too long. But the big thing is the White Tower. Okay, and that's where you've got the Royal Armouries. So that's pretty spectacular. The gift shop, there's one in the basement, there's one down the back there by the Ravens, and there's one as you go out. Okay, eating, well, that was where, when you came off the walls, there was that big red brick building. That was the old armouries, and that's now a restaurant, cafe. Okay, anything else you need to know?